Because of the challenge, Setsuna is more obliged to win the match. Zappa releases a massive firepower at Drago, but he easily blocks this with his palm. Zappa is pissed about this and he immediately follows through with another attack. This time around, the attack hits, but it still fails to burn Drago. Drago confidently reveals that his body is armor, and nothing that they throw at him can overcome his powerful muscles. Zappa figures out that Drago is protected by enchantment magic, and in addition, his mana guard is so overpowered that everything he does will only tickle Drago. To make things worse, Drago is getting buffs from his teammates, making him seemingly invincible. Zappa is left to wonder just how many buffs Drago is operating on. Sid, on the other hand, figures out that Drago is using an ancient warrior's formation. Apparently, there was a class in the old times that was called warrior, and they fought monsters with only their bodies and martial arts. Back then, magic wasn't properly developed, and mages were nothing but a support class for warriors. However, as time passes, warriors find it difficult to handle the rapid increase in monster activities, since they are mortals after all. Not long after, magic also developed, which essentially made the technique totally obsolete. However, Drago is able to pull off the technique because he is an exceptional close-range mage. Sid is also impressed that Cha-Cha is betting everything on a trainee, and a close combat mage at that. Sid figures out that if things continue the way they are, his squad formation will automatically be broken down. Sid concludes that he has no choice but to play his hand and bet everything on Setsuna too. Meanwhile, Setsuna is still chasing Drago all around the arena. Setsuna figures out that he doesn't have the time to use the charge bullet skill because Drago's team is essentially backing him up with everything. However, Setsuna is hoping for Zappa, as he knows that he won't allow the team to crash down without a proper fight. Just when he thought about this, Zappa decided to increase the intensity of his firepower. Zappa releases more firepower than he was already letting off, making life very difficult for the opponents. They start feeling the heat, and one of them mentions that things are getting worse because they can't compete with just one long-range mage. Things become progressively worse for them when Han takes out their support from behind. After this, he aims his attack at Drago, but Drago dodges it, shocking him, since it was supposed to be a surprise attack. Setsuna is also increasing his interest in the fight because he has to prove to himself why he was once the captain of the Magus battalion. At the same time, Drago is hellbent on not losing to Setsuna of all people. They continue trading blow after blow until Setsuna finds an opening, and he smashes Drago to the ground. Seston then stands above him with a mana sword, telling him that the match has already been decided. Drago cannot believe that he just lost to a one-motion throw. Even Cha-Cha cannot believe that the person they are relying on has been taken out. To avoid further conflict, she raises her hand to surrender. With this, Sid's unit wins the battle yet again. Setsuna once again impresses those who are watching, since he changes the entirety of how mages are supposed to fight. Setsuna then tells Drago that his skill was excellent, but he only managed to decipher its weakness. Drago is impressed by this, and he shakes Setsuna before telling him that their next battle will not end the way it just did. After this, they conclude the mock battles, and Sid gets the choice to pick a mission that he wants. Zappa runs over to Sid, asking him what mission he plans to choose. Sid reveals that he will be submitting their choice the next day after analyzing the way the battle went. Setsuna knows that Sid might choose another mission entirely, and he figures out that he needs to talk to Sid and convince him to choose the Rhodes Island mission. On his way to Sid's office, he figures out that this is the first time he will be having a proper conversation with the man. Setsuna figures out that he didn't know Sid in his past life, most likely because he died on Rhodes Island. In addition to convincing him about the mission, he wants to talk to him about Han and Valerie. Setsuna enters the captain's office to meet with something mind-blowing. Inside the office are 3 Sids, leaving Setsuna ultimately blown away and confused. Setsuna initially assumes that Sid is a triplet, but he trashes the thought since he hasn't heard of something like that in the past. He also wonders if Sid is trying to test him with some sort of illusion magic. Setsuna is still trying to figure out what he is looking at when Sid speaks out, telling him that he would have preferred to offer him a drink, but they are all busy. Setsuna quickly tells the man that he doesn't have to worry about him. Sid then mentions that fighting is not the only job he has, since he is the battalion commander. In fact, he believes that another clone of himself will come in handy. The moment he mentions the clone, Setsuna becomes curious and he calls him back on it. Sid confirms what he said, revealing that what Setsuna is looking at is a special type of magic called cloning magic. Setsuna reveals his utmost surprise, since he believed Sid was a long-range magic user. Sid then explains that his magic is called copy gear, and this allows him to use the spells of those who allow him to. Basically, he is currently borrowing the cloning magic from another member of the team, and the same goes for the long-range magic that he used in their mock battle. Setsuna is blown away because this is his first time seeing such magic that doesn't fit into any of the existing systems. Sid mentions that it is actually a good spell, but he can only save up to 3 types of magic, and in addition to that, the retention period is not more than a day. Because his mana tank is not that large, he has limits to how he can use it. Even with these, he is tasked with a lot just because he has a spell that can branch into others. Because of the amount of work that he is required to do, he gulps down a lot of energy drinks. Setsuna finally realizes that the commander is having a really tough one. Sid then asks Setsuna if he has come to see him because of the special mission, and Setsuna replies that he would like to go to the Rhodes Island mission. Sid is surprised because he was expecting Setsuna to suggest that they take on the royal family escort detail. Sid is quite aware that his grades and results give him the chance to form a good bond with the royal family if need be. To Setsuna, Sid is right to some point because in his past life he actually chose the royal escort, and he secured his promotion in the army. However, in this current life, he now has something that he needs to prioritize over promotions. Just then, one of Sid's clones passed him accumulated data on Setsuna. They have gathered info on his background and his early ambitions too. In the note, Sid reads that Setsuna actually chose the worst magic path even though he had the chance to pick the others, which are considered to be the best. Sid is conflicted because what his background data and ambitions says are completely different from what Setsuna now says he wants. Sid wants to know more, but Setsuna hesitates. Sid then tells him that he has no reason to be cautious around him because he also wants to know more about him. After thinking about what the evil god did to him, Setsuna finally reveals that his motives are driven by anger. Setsuna explains that there is someone who is trying to take what is his, and to punch the said person in the face, he had to pick the close combat magic. When Sid hears his story, he asks him if he thinks his said enemy has some business on Rhodes Island. Sid admits that Rhodes Island is one that is shrouded in mystery, and when compared to the other missions, its danger level is unknown. However, without Setsuna coming to see him, he was already thinking of assigning his unit to the mission. Setsuna smiles when he hears this, believing that everything is already on the verge of being great. Just then, Daniel and Iris run into the room, and Daniel asks Sid if he shared the heart-shaped chocolate made for him by Cha-Cha. Sid says yes because he doesn't want to be the only one to eat the nice chocolate. The two finally confirm that their boss is a hopeless man. The two then reveal that Cha-Cha's team will be escorting them to the Rhodes Island investigation mission. They ask him why he thinks this is, and he says he believes that Cha-Cha and her team are worried that they should not go alone. The two immediately hold their heads in frustration because Sid is totally hopeless. Setsuna knows about Iris and Daniel and the fact that they are pretty skilled. However, they were also wiped out before the main catastrophe, just like the headmaster. Since he knows how special the two are, Setsuna is prepared to defend them this time around. Since Setsuna is done talking with the commander, he bows his head telling him that he is taking his leave. Sid wants to talk to Setsuna about Zappa, but Setsuna lets the man know that he is aware of Zappa's soft side. Later on, Zappa scolds Valerie for being a bum, and since they are going on a mission with an unknown danger level, Zappa angrily discharges her from the unit. Valerie is shocked to hear this, and Zappa tells her that he is going to break her bones, so she doesn't have the strength to fight. That is, if she wants to follow the team. Just then, Valerie unleashes a scary aura from her body, and she appears to be a totally different person. She gets on her feet with so much aura, and tells Zappa that she has a duty to her family, and there is nothing that can stop her. Still in rage mode, she mentions that she initially lost her confidence, but it was brought back by a certain someone. Zappa is shocked to see that Valerie is ready to fight him without holding anything back. Zappa decides to indulge her, and he unleashes firepower, hoping to disarm Valerie once and for all. However, Setsuna jumps in before the attack hits Valerie to break it and cut it down. Setsuna then tells Zappa to back off while assuring him that Setsuna is definitely going to produce results. Setsuna urges Zappa to trust Valerie even if it is for once because he can sense the determination on Valerie's face. Zappa is forced to back off, but he lets Setsuna know that he will be the one to be punished if Valerie doesn't perform up to expectations on the island. Soon afterward, it is time to leave for the island, and just as expected, Cha-Cha and his team arrive at the dock. Together they all step into the boats as they set sail for the island. Daniel mentions that the island is a peaceful island, and he just hopes that things are the same by the time they get there. Unknown to them, a man-eating monster that can also talk is already ravaging the island. Meanwhile, Leo is on Morgana's trail, and he has already figured out that she is not dead yet. In fact, her entire house has moved, leaving Leo disappointed. Pooker, who is behind him, then mentions that the Magus battalion is on its way to investigate Rhodes Island. Since the evil legion is there, Pooker wonders if the Magus battalion will be wiped out. Suddenly, it dawns on Leo that Setsuna went for the training, and there is the possibility that he joined the investigative mission. Out of nowhere, Pooker throws his ninja knife at Leo. Leo barely dodges the knife, which hits the ground, shattering it. Leo is shocked, wondering why Pooker attacked him, and Pooker tells him to stop playing dumb because he is probably the one who leaked the information to Setsuna. Pooker tells Leo that he is a traitor, and that he has to atone for his sins with his life. Leo is surprised that Pooker has come to a conclusion already, but he doesn't mind fighting Pooker. In fact, he is hyped to fight Pooker, since it is going to be the first in history. Pooker, with his Joker face, also grins brightly as he gets ready to fight Leo. Back to the Sid and Cha-Cha unit, they finally see the island in range, after traveling for just a little over an hour. Sid notices big birds flying in the air, and he says it is unusual because there are no big birds on the island. This basically confirms that there is something wrong on the island. Apparently the island is home to fewer than 500 people, but because of its hot springs, it tends to attract loads of tourists. Sid adds that the volcano, which is present in the middle of the island, has also been dormant for a long time. However, with the way things are, they can feel the eerie presence in the air. Sid then tells them that their mission is to find survivors, protect them, and investigate whatever horrific things are happening on the island. However, there is going to be a possibility that they will have to engage in combat, and he urges the team to stay sharp. Setsuna remembers that in his past life, Sid's unit was wiped out, and even the only survivor, Zappa, had mumbled memories. Zappa returned and could only remember that he was attacked by monsters of unknown origins. Since the monsters later appeared when the evil god showed up, Setsuna is confident that the apostles are involved. Sid then tells them that the missions are always difficult, which is why 30% of trainees drop out every year. Sid then urges them to put themselves first in case of danger. Sid adds that they should not be blinded by the officer's recommendation, which will end up costing them their lives. Zappa wastes no time turning to Valerie, telling her not to drag the team down. Just then, Daniel calls the team's attention to the weird feeling that he is getting. Setsuna immediately figures out that the wind is gone, but after careful observation, they realize that the ship is not moving. Suddenly, a large sea serpent emerges from the water, scaring the hell out of them. Apparently the serpent is a 3-star monster, and Zappa wonders why something as dangerous as it is looking for in a peaceful sea. Valerie immediately steps up, saying she is going to handle the serpent. Using her magic, she creates a barrier that prevents the monster from reaching the ship. Sid then screams out orders, telling his unit that the monster's weakness is lightning. Sid hits the monster with a powerful lightning attack, which gets amplified by the fact that it is in water. The monster screams in pain before losing consciousness, and it slowly sinks into the water. However, the serpent shocks them when it emerges again, but this time, it hits the ship with a tentacle. Iris is shocked because a sea serpent has no business having tentacles. Setsuna starts to understand what they are up against, but suddenly, a tentacle comes flying into the ship. Before it can do any serious damage, Setsuna cuts it down with his bare fists. Just then, several monster heads appear from under the water, ultimately surrounding the ship. Zappa finally figures out why the ship was unable to move from where it is. Even though the monsters are scary, the team stays together to launch several attacks at the monsters. Suddenly, the ship gets so rocked that Daniel almost falls off, but Sid saves him. Since he is the summoner, Sid tells him to summon the divine bird so that they can escape from the already doomed ship. Daniel is worried about Cha-Cha and her team because they have their hands full too, but Sid urges him to trust the other team to make it out. Sid reminds Daniel that they won't be able to form a rescue plan if they all fall into the abyss. While Daniel is summoning the bird, Valerie uses her barrier magic to protect the team. The bird manages to get them out just in time before the ship is ultimately crushed by the monster. The team is still catching their breath from the near-death escape that they had when flying, ugly-looking monsters with human faces appeared above them. Before they know it, they realize that they have been surrounded, and Sid suggests that they descend to the island, while Setsuna intercepts the monsters. Zappa and Han engage the monsters, helping the divine bird to safely land on the island. Sid immediately realizes that escaping the island will be very difficult since the ship is gone. Without a doubt, he realizes that they were lured to the island. Iris is worried about Cha-Cha's team, but Sid tells her that she has nothing to worry about because Cha-Cha's team is stacked with enchantment-type mages. Zappa believes that they should be able to make it to shore, but the only hope is that they get to regroup with them later on. Sid then tells the team that the only choice they have is to proceed on foot. He can't believe that the once peaceful island is now crawling with creepy and ugly monsters. Iris notices that Valerie is trembling with fear, and she urges her to stay strong because things are not as bad as they seem. Iris walks up to a flower bud to try and make Valerie better, but the moment she gets very close, the flower bud transforms into a monster with loads of serrated teeth. With no way to move, the monster grabs Iris with its scary mouth while the team members scream out her name. Just before the monster can fully take Iris away, Setsuna is the first to make a move, and he cuts down the monster's neck, causing it to spill Iris out. Iris is badly injured, but it wasn't much thanks to her shield that she activated at the right time. Setsuna asks her if she is fine, and she assures Setsuna that she is okay. Iris says things would have been bad for her if she hadn't activated her shield just in time. Iris mentions her determination to stay alive, since she is the team's healer after all. Valerie is relieved that Iris is still alive and with them. Daniel then mentions that the monsters on the island are basically vicious and are more diverse than they anticipated. Sid agrees with him, saying all the creatures on the island seemingly have the first instincts to hurt humans. Daniel then suggests that they fall back and regroup with Cha-Cha's team because the island is very dangerous to be on. Sid says it is a nice idea, but the question is, can they? Suddenly, a wounded human appears from the woods, begging for help. Before he can say anything else, he passes out in front of them. They rush over to attend to him, and Iris uses her healing magic on him while asking him how he got injured. The dude then reveals that he is looking for his little sister. Sid asks him what his name is, and he reveals that it is Janelle. He mentions that his village was attacked by monsters that they had never seen before, and the adults made sure that they got the kids to safety. However, he got separated from his sister, Sapine. With despair written all over him, Janelle begs the mages to find his sister. He says the village is swarming with monsters, but the only person he has left in his life is his sister. Just then, Setsuna pats him on the head, telling him that he has nothing to worry about. Setsuna then turns to Sid, pointing out that their plan to retreat has automatically been botched. Sid then makes another order, telling the team that they have no choice but to rescue every last survivor on the island. Without argument, the entire team agrees with their boss. Once Jonel has enough strength, he starts leading them to his village, which is about half a day away from where they are. Iris then tells the kid not to push himself too hard because her healing magic can only close his wounds, not restore his stamina. Janelle acknowledges the advice, and they continue traveling through the forest path. Momentarily, they hear a rustling coming from the bush beside them. They start guessing what it might be, but when it finally surfaces, it turns out to be a cute rabbit. Valerie is curious when she realizes that it is just a rabbit, but Zappa screams at her, telling her not to let her guard down. Sid then puts on his glasses to assess the rabbit, and he tells the team that it is not an ordinary rabbit. Apparently, it is a one-star monster, judging from the magic signature that it is given off. The rabbit finally shows hostile intentions toward them, and the team prepares to engage it. To make it worse, there are loads of them in the area. Before they know it, they are surrounded, and the rabbit monsters start leaping toward them. The team stands back to back to make sure that there is no opening for the monsters to exploit. Zappa unleashes his powerful flame magic, telling his colleagues that they have nothing to worry about because the monsters are pretty weak. Daniel also summons his giant wolf to take on the annoying rabbits. However, he still got bitten by some of the rabbits because there are just too many to deal with. Daniel starts losing mobility, and this is when they realize that the rabbits have paralytic poisons. Setsuna knows that the poison is only going to build up the more one gets bitten, and since they are up against a horde, they have a huge problem on their hands. Once Daniel crashes to his knees, Sid figures out that he is going to use his skill to copy Iris's recovery magic. He then tells his teammates to make sure that the monsters don't get close while he is working on Daniel. The team takes this seriously as they unleash a barrage of attacks on the monsters to try and get them away. Momentarily, they clear out a bunch of them, giving the team some breathing space. Setsuna believes that everything is over. And while he is walking back to the team, he fails to notice a surviving rabbit monster that is walking behind him. Han sees the monster, but decides that he is not going to intervene. Just when the monster is about to bite Setsuna, Valerie spots it and she kicks into action. Uses her magic to quickly disable the monster, saving Setsuna in the process. Han is pissed that his plan was ruined by the overzealous Valerie. After the battle, Janelle reveals how impressed he is with how strong the team is. Daniel also mentions that he is feeling better thanks to the team. Setsuna, on the other hand, is more concerned about Sid's glasses. He asks him about the glass, and Sid reveals that it is a magic tool that can measure a creature's approximate threat level based on its magical power, movements, and appearance. He brought it just in case he needed it, and it turns out that he actually did need it. Sid proceeds to further show more examples by staring at the flying birds with the glasses. He decodes their danger level and reveals that they are 3 stars. The 4-legged beast, on the other hand, is 2 stars, while the man-eating flower that attacked Iris was 1 star. Since Valerie is on support duty, Sid hands her the spare pair of glasses. Since it is getting late, Sid tells them that they are going to set up camp soon. Sid urges them to rest as much as they can because they are going to need their strength the next day while going through the forest. Setsuna then taps Janelle on the shoulder, telling him that he is free to stay by his side, just in case he is scared. Janelle thanks Setsuna, and just like he said, he clung to Setsuna. While they are gathering firewood, Janelle tells Setsuna that he is getting some weird vibes from Han. Setsuna then tells the boy that he has nothing to worry about when it comes to Han. Setsuna is convinced that Han was aware of the monster behind him, but he intentionally didn't make a move. Janelle curls up, talking about how scared his sister will be and the need to find her as soon as they can. Setsuna commends the kid, telling him that he is a good big brother. Han then asks Janelle if there is a way for them to identify his sister, and he reveals that his sister wears a red pendant around her neck, which was a birthday present that he gave her. Setsuna then assures Janelle that they are going to find her sister, and he even swears in the process. Meanwhile, his sister is stuck in a cave, and it appears that she is turning into a scary monster. Daniel also assures the kid, telling him that they are going to find his sister once they reach their village. Before they go to sleep, Sid informs the team that they are going to take turns watching the camp. Apparently, Valerie is the first person on duty, and she is excited to take on the night guard post. Later on, Han approaches Valerie, telling her to mind her business if she doesn't want to get exposed as a woman. Apparently, he is still pissed that Valerie saved Setsuna from getting bitten by the monster. Valerie tells Han that she has been cooperating with everything he wanted, and in addition to that, she has better things to do. Han laughs, saying the monsters on the island are trashed compared to his power. Han then tells Valerie that she has nothing to worry about because he plans to make her his wife. Valerie is shocked to hear this, but Han just tells her to shut her mouth because she should be scared and honored to be his wife. He believes that by marrying her, she gets to save her family from the impending doom. Valerie slaps Han's hands off, telling him that she is not interested in his game. Before things can escalate, Setsuna shows up, telling Han to back off. Both Valerie and Han are surprised to see Setsuna appear on the scene. Setsuna then mentions that he already had his suspicion that there is some sort of blackmail involved in the whole thing. Setsuna believes that Han is acting irrationally because of the nature of his magic. Han is surprised when Setsuna says this, and he assumes that Setsuna is playing some sort of psychological trick on him. Setsuna then tells him to be careful because he is biting more than he can chew. Han refuses to take Setsuna's advice, claiming that he has better things to do instead. As Han walks away, he is left to start wondering just how much information Setsuna has. Han makes up his mind that he will make sure that Setsuna dies on the island. Setsuna then asks Valerie what happened since he couldn't hear the entire thing that they were talking about. Valerie wants to confide in Setsuna as she is scared that her life is over if she does. Valerie then tells Setsuna that she can't talk about the issue at the moment. She also begs him to keep the issue away from the rest of the squad because she doesn't want any trouble that will interfere with the mission. Setsuna assures Valerie that he is not going to pursue the issue because of her, not because of the mission. However, he assures her that if anything happens, he will be there to help. The next morning, the team prepares to continue their journey. Since they have no idea what sort of monsters they are going to encounter, Iris suggests that they proceed with caution. As they walk through the forest path, Daniel notices the tense mood in the air, and he tells his teammates to just focus on the mission so that they can finish fast and put it all behind them. Setsuna agrees with Daniel, but he reveals that the forest is just too quiet. Suddenly, a horde of flying monsters approaches their position, but just as they are about to prepare for battle, the monsters fly past them, leaving the team to wonder where the monsters are heading. Zappa is confident that the monsters are not running from them since they are 3-star monsters. Suddenly, they feel a strange sensation in the air, and Sid orders his team to get into formation. Just then, a terrifying chimera monster with a lion head, a goat head, a gorilla head, and a snake tail appears right in front of them. Valerie scans the monster, and fear grips her when she realizes that it is a 4-star monster. It finally dawns on the team why the bird monsters flew away. Sid is surprised that they could run into a 4-star monster inside the forest. Sid then orders his team to take down the monster as fast as they can. The chimera comes charging at them, but Daniel unleashes his summoned beast to engage the monster. The summoned beast tries tackling the chimera to the ground, but it ends up getting slammed to the ground instead. Daniel is shocked by the incredible power that the chimera boasts of, and Setsuna charges toward the monster ready to cut it down. However, the monster suddenly turns around to run away, leaving Setsuna confused. Out of nowhere, an ominous presence fills the air, and a giant foot steps on the chimera, crushing it effortlessly. The whole team is gripped with fear and disbelief at what they are looking at. Valerie almost crashes out when she scans the danger level of the monster that just appeared right in front of them. The monster is a freaking 6-star danger beast that stands towering above them. It is a monster that they have never seen before, and it defies all biological law. Just by staring at the monster, Setsuna figures out that it was the monster that caused the annihilation of the Mage Core in his past life. The monster then grabs the Chimera and munches it on like it's some random fly. The monster then throws what is left of the Chimera at the team, forcing them to immediately scatter to avoid getting crushed by a flying Chimera. However, Daniel is too slow to get out of the way, and the Chimera hits him, crushing him to the ground. Daniel screams out as blood spills everywhere, leaving a very horrific scene. Janelle turns around to see Daniel getting crushed, and he calls out his name in horror. Setsuna, on the other hand, wastes no time taking the fight to the monster. He tries cutting off its leg, but his sword bounces off, proving his suspicion that the monster's skin is pretty tough. In addition to its toughness, it boasts immense strength. Sid then screams at Iris, telling her to take care of Daniel, while telling the rest of the team that they have a chance to defeat the beast if they all attack it at the same time. Iris acknowledges the order and runs toward Daniel. But just as she is about to reach him, another of the giant monsters appears in front of her. This further piles on their mystery, because one of the monsters is enough work already, but now they have to deal with two, or possibly more. Just as predicted, more of the giant monsters show up, numbering at least 6, and they surround the team, leaving no escape route. Apparently, Setsuna knows the monster is Gorfont, and this is thanks to his knowledge from his past life. Basically, it was a monster that wiped out the battalion, even though it was filled with long-range mages. The monsters try to overrun the team, but they manage to stand their ground. Valerie in particular holds the team together with her barrier magic, but holding too long starts taking a toll on her as blood drips out of her nose. Suddenly, Janelle screams and points to a monster in the distance that turns out to be his sister. Janelle cannot hold back as he tries running toward his sister. Sid doesn't want them to break formation, since it is going to make things harder for them. Just then, Zappa tells the team to go on ahead while he holds down the monsters. Valerie refuses, saying she wants to stay back and fight with Zappa until the end. Zappa scolds her for being naive, and he reminds her that she has a family to rebuild. Zappa smiles at her, telling her that it would be unwise of her to throw her life away on the island. Setsuna is not surprised by this since he knows that Zappa has a soft spot for his comrades even though he pretends he doesn't. Setsuna reveals that Zappa is the kindest but most awkward person. Zappa smiles, saying he considers the monsters a challenge for him, since he is a strong dude. Sid finally decides to give the order and he tells everyone to break off so that they can chase after Janelle while Zappa covers them from behind. Before anything else, Setsuna runs at great speed to get Daniel from where he is. Setsuna then follows the rest of the team while Zappa stays behind, unleashing insane flames at the monsters. Since there is no one in the area for him to worry about, and he also has his pride to maintain, Zappa finally decides to let it all out. He releases scorching flames that burn the Gorfants, making things hard for them. The team finally catches up to Janelle on a cliff, and when they ask him where his sister is, he points to the forest, saying she has vanished into it. They are debating the possibility of this when the cliff suddenly breaks off, causing them to all fall to the water below. They wonder if the cliff broke off as part of the battle's aftershock. Meanwhile, the dude, who created the monsters, is on the island, and he is watching the team struggle. He wants to see just how strong they are by toying with them. Later on, Setsuna washes up on shore, and he realizes that he has been separated from the rest of the team. He is thinking of regrouping with his teammates when he is surrounded by chimeras. Elsewhere, Iris and Han find themselves trapped together. Iris is talking about how they need to work together when she suddenly realizes that Han has vanished, leaving her to deal with the monsters. Han is running away without a care in the world, since he knows that he can take care of himself. Valerie, on the other hand, is being chased down by monsters. Sid is engaging a group of monsters when he hears Valerie's voice. Sid calls for Valerie, demanding to know her position. Valerie hears the captain's voice coming from inside a cave, even though it is not the captain's, and she is being lured in without even realizing it. Just as she reaches the entrance of the cave, she realizes that she has been duped because she is being called by a group of monsters that are mimicking the commander's voice. Sid notices that Valerie is in trouble and he turns around to look at where her voice is coming from. This causes him to lose concentration, and before he knows it, a Gorfant appears from behind. He almost gets crushed to death, but he barely leaps away, and the monster ends up shattering the ground instead. Sid tries to make a stand against the monster, but he gets slammed so hard into a tree, leaving him open to the monster. Sid admits that the monster is crazily strong, which makes their efforts and tricks totally useless. Sid figures out that only the powerful mages like Zappa have a chance against the Gorfant. However, Sid is proud to be a commander in the Magus battalion, and he is not about to go off easily. He snaps his fingers and activates his copy gear skill, ultimately putting all of his units into overdrive. Sid finally gets back on his feet, but the monster doesn't waste time before coming after him again. Sid combines a healing spell with a formation spell and a long-range spell, which is infused with all of his power to properly face the Gorfant. All of these merge into one big spell, the Lightning Spear, and Sid throws it at the Gorfant. This cuts through the Gorfant, ultimately defeating it, leaving Sid with a proud moment. He might have been able to defeat the Gorfant, but at the same time, he is at a disadvantage because he will not be able to use magic for a while. As if he had the worst fate of all, 2 Gorfants appear behind him. One of them punches him, and with no magic support, Sid takes the hit, ultimately crashing to the ground. Sid is about to become spaghetti when Setsuna rushes in to block the hit with his fist. The force from Setsuna's mana-imbued punch causes the monster severe pain that it had to hold its arm. It turns out that Setsuna had saved Valerie before heading toward the commander. He apologizes for coming late, and Blazer is already excited that they are about to have some fun dealing with the Gorfants. Setsuna is in no mood to hold Blazer back, and he agrees with his suggestion that they go all out. His hair turns red as usual and his body starts to emit scorching flames. Setsuna leaps toward one of the monsters and tears its head off with just a single punch. While dealing with the Gorfants, the flying monsters show up, telling Setsuna not to bother because all of his efforts are nothing but trash. Setsuna is already pissed at the fact that they lure in their prey by mimicking humans, and he angrily cuts them down with his fiery sword. One of the Gorophants tries to grab him, but Setsuna relieves it of its arm to put it in its place. Setsuna goes after the Gorophant, decapitating it. Before he does, he tells the Gorophants that they are about to feel the despair he felt before his regression. Without care, he burns down the Gorophant from the head to the bottom. Setsuna basically turns the entire area into a slaughterhouse for the monsters, and he lets them know that they have picked the wrong opponent to mess with. Setsuna then checks Sid's pulse, and he heaves a sigh of relief when he realizes that Sid is no danger whatsoever. He prepares a warm place and then places the two on the warm rafts. Valerie is the first to wake up, and Setsuna rushes over to check on her, asking if her wounds hurt. Cautious to hide her identity, Valerie tells Setsuna not to worry because she can handle everything by herself. Not long after this, Sid also wakes up from his slumber. Sid thanks Setsuna for saving his life, but he is curious as to how Setsuna was able to take down the Gorophants. Setsuna hesitates to answer, and Sid decides not to pursue further because he already understands that he doesn't want to share. Sid mentions that they need to regroup with the others, and he is still saying this when a bloodied Zappa shows up with Han behind him. The trio is shocked to see Zappa, and Valerie cannot believe that Zappa was able to defeat the monsters. Zappa smiles, saying the monsters were a warm-up for him. Han then mentions that they used an invisibility cloak to avoid monsters on their way, but lies that they lost contact with Iris. Sid then takes into account that Iris's location is unknown, and he mentions that they need to find a way to regroup with Chacha's team. Han then tells the team that he saw a village when he was coming, and Sid figures out that it is Jonel's village. Since there is the possibility that there are going to be survivors there, Han suggests that he and Setsuna go. After all, they are the only ones who can still move. Valerie says it is too dangerous, and because of this, she offers to follow them too. Han soon leads them to a cliff, and he says the village is beyond the forest. Setsuna is surprised that there is a village beyond the forest, but while he is not looking, Han prepares to attack him from behind. Valerie sees this and comes rushing over. She jumps between Setsuna and the attack, and she gets hit instead. Han is pissed that Valerie is ruining his plan, and he berates her, but Valerie lets him know that she has no intention of abandoning her benefactor. Unfortunately for Valerie, Han's attack tears off Valerie's shirt, revealing her identity as a woman. Valerie apologizes for not telling Setsuna sooner, saying she failed the Magic Academy but had to take her brother's place. Setsuna is not pissed about Valerie hiding her identity because he believes that everyone has what they are hiding. Setsuna assures Valerie that he is going to keep her secret safe. And in addition to that, he won't allow Han to further threaten her. Setsuna whips out his mana sword, but Han puts on his cloak, automatically going invisible. Valerie is worried, but Setsuna tells her not to move. Setsuna concentrates all of his senses, and he is able to pinpoint Han's attack. Before the attack can hit, he repels it and grabs the core of the attack. Setsuna finally figures out the true nature of his magic, which is a golem created with enchantment magic. Valerie is surprised that Han is not a long-range mage. Setsuna says Han has been imbuing the invisible golem with mana and then made it fly to deceive people that he is a long-range mage. The only reason he was able to control the trajectory of the attack is because he was giving the golem orders. Setsuna then says he normally wouldn't get the range or attack power of long-range magic without some kind of special help. Setsuna tracks Han's location and throws the golem at him, taking off his cape and ultimately revealing his presence. It also reveals the special assistance that he has been getting, and Blazer is blown away. He knew something was off about the dude, and this is because he is getting assistance from Zephylion, which is a spirit magic. Han is surprised that Setsuna knows this, and even though he is curious as to how he knows, he believes killing him is much better. He rushes towards Setsuna, unleashing his attack at him. But Setsuna is already a master when it comes to spirit magic, and he easily exploits the flaw in Han's attacks. Setsuna continues repelling Han's attacks, and Han soon reveals that the spirit magic he is using is the one that ran rampant during the Great Magic War. Valerie cannot believe that all of Han's golems are cloaked in blades of wind, which makes it very dangerous. Valerie is terrified, and she believes that Han's type of magic shouldn't be allowed to exist. Han unleashes another wave of attack, but Setsuna cuts it down yet again. However, Han changes the trajectory, and it ends up hitting Valerie, pushing her off the cliff. Setsuna is now left in a dilemma. If he turns around to help Valerie, Han gets the easy access to kill him, and if he decides to face Han, Valerie will fall to her death. However, Setsuna doesn't think twice before going after Valerie to save her, shocking Han. Han mocks Setsuna for not valuing his own life. Setsuna manages to grab Valerie, and he pushes his sword into the rocky side to try and stop his descent. However, Han is not about to let him return to the surface very easily. He shoots another attack at the point where Setsuna is holding onto, shattering the cliff, causing him to fall off. Han believes that he has won, and he starts making fun of Setsuna for being useless. Suddenly he spots a finger at the end of the cliff, shocking him. Han walks over to check, and he is stunned to see that Setsuna is holding with just one finger, while still holding Valerie close to him. Han takes a closer look and realizes that Setsuna's finger is glowing red, which means he has somehow copied Drago's Hercules skill. Han is shocked when he sees this, leaving him to ask with curiosity just what sort of absurd magic talent Setsuna has. Setsuna then manages to get back on the cliff, telling Han that he is about to taste dust. Setsuna gives Valerie his cape and tells her to regroup with Zappa and the others. Since she is already injured, Valerie knows she is going to be a burden, and she agrees to leave. As she is running away, Han decides to attack her, but Setsuna cuts down the attack, creating a safe passage for Valerie. Han is pissed about just how annoying Setsuna is. Enraged, he unleashes a barrage of golems at Setsuna, but Setsuna, boasting of years of experience, easily takes down the golems. Setsuna then tells Han that he only has a large reserve of mana, but he is trash since he doesn't know how to effectively use it. Setsuna says he was so fixated on long-range magic that he didn't get the chance to polish his enchantment skills. Han is pissed when he hears this, and Setsuna tells him to come at him so he can show him how power is properly used. Han is pissed, and this time he unleashes a bigger golem, but Setsuna closes his eyes like the golem doesn't pose any threat to him. He uses his mana suppression skill, ultimately becoming invisible to the raging golems. Han starts to panic when he can't see Setsuna. To protect himself, he unleashes more golems, but the spirit in control refuses to give Han more of his mana. Han is pissed, and he screams at the spirit telling him to give him more mana, but the spirit reminds him that the deal they made was that he would always give him just half of his mana. Han is frustrated, and he suddenly hears Setsuna's voice beside him, making fun of him for not properly bonding with his spirit. Han is left shaking in fear as he wonders where Setsuna is. Just then, Setsuna appears behind him, and Han immediately unleashes an attack behind him. He laughs hysterically, thinking he has killed Setsuna, but when he turns around, what he sees is a flame-infused Setsuna staring down at him. Setsuna then reminds him that he already told him he would show him how to properly use a spirit's power. Setsuna dashes toward Han, punching him straight in the chest. Fire engulfs his chest as he is sent across the area. Setsuna tells Han that he is not a person who is worthy of being in Sid's squad. In fact, Setsuna doesn't think he should be in the Mage Corps at all. Han crawls in pain as fire burns him. Realizing that he has lost, Han crawls off the cliff and falls into the water below. Setsuna knows that he is going to survive since he has a spirit magic backing him. Blazer wants them to chase Han down, but Setsuna says no. He wants them to return to Zappa and the others in the meantime. Later on, Han manages to make it out of the water, and he walks around weakly in the forest. He blames Zephylion for not giving him more power, and the spirit asks him if he is ready to undergo the trial again. Han is pissed at the little amount of mana that he is getting, because he considers himself a great person. Apparently his family was a branch of a noble house, which means they were lower-class nobles. Because they needed the protection of the higher nobles, they were forced to serve them. Since he has little mana, he was taught since he was a kid that an incompetent man can only ever be a tool. He was forced to die or make a contribution for the family's benefit. His father ended up dying a trash death because he was weak. Because he is not ready to be like his father, Han decided that he was going to walk a different path. With this, he was able to obtain a relic left behind by a shadow chanter. Han spoke with Zephylion, overcame his trial, and then formed a contract. With Zeph's power, he was able to achieve great things at Sei Magic Academy. Now that he has been beaten by Setsuna, Han is burning to get back at him. Momentarily, Han arrives at a cave, and when he enters, he finds monsters in capsules. He is shocked and confused, but standing in the room is a strange person. This person welcomes him and reveals that he is in his workshop. It turns out that the strange person is Legion, and he is an apostle. He then asks Han one simple question, and this is, do you desire power?
His story is not yet over. If you want to see how far he will go, to master his magic and to face the evil god again, join us, subscribe and witness his rise.